hey, the guy with the milk and the juice spilling,
Orange juice.
That's like his best stuff. Can you get him on your new film, David? Like, where's that guy? You know, because it's too good.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
All right, everybody.
Yeah. That sound can only mean one thing, right?
That's right. It's time for one fucking hour. I'm Evan Husney, the host, co-host, whatever I am. Joined, of course, to my left, we got Tom Fitzgerald. Tom, what's up?
Hey, everybody. Happy summertime.
All right. And it's another week off for Marcus. He's not here, so you know what that means. Reigning one fucking hour champion returns. Rémy Bennett, welcome back to the show. How's it going?
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Glad to have you back for this one. This fucking hour, episode 31, guys. Very excited that we're getting back into the horror genre.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
It really has.
What was the last one? I can't even remember.
I don't know. Texas Chainsaw.
Sledgehammer. Anyway.
Sledgehammer, probably. Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. So getting back into it here with this one. David Cronenberg's, our first David Cronenberg film, by the way, who's also obviously in the trades these days for his latest film, Crimes of the Future, which is in release now. So it's kind of apropos that we're doing this. But David Cronenberg's 1979 film, The Brood. So
The Brood. That is how we're going to refer to it the whole time.
Sure. That sounds good. All right. I'm about to start that clock right now.
Oh, God.
Bing, bing, bing. Here we go. All right. Here's some background on the film for the people. David Cronenberg's 1979 body horror divorce allegory tells the story of a father fighting to gain custody over his 5-year-old daughter, who is living with her mother at a remote experimental psychotherapy institute run by a radical therapist played brilliantly by Oliver Reed. Primary colored snowsuit-clad manifestations of childhood trauma are the iconic motif that wreak havoc in The Brood, which is both monster movie and cautionary tale against the dangers of cult-like self-help fads that were all the rage in the 1970s that exploited trauma for financial gain. So that's the film. But Tom, this movie, in one way or another, made a somewhat of an impression, I guess, on you as a young child. Isn't that right?
As a tot, yeah.
I
wasn't much older. Yeah, I wasn't. I was a little older than what Candy would be in the film, but what would happen to me was I'd stay up a little too late and watch like SCTV, for instance. So in the summer, I'd stay up a little too late. It'd be like 12:30, 12:45 a.m. on Friday. And once in a while, this was like the third big example, a really gnarly TV spot would come on. And I didn't know Cronenberg. I was a kid, a little kid. And I was like, I don't know Cronenberg. I don't know The Brood. But it just comes on. And, that's what's so great about TV spots. They're so short. They're so punchy.
Right.
And it's on YouTube, the one I'm talking about. But anyway, it happens. I'm disoriented. What the hell is this? It looks awful. And there's a child in peril, which was a rare-ish thing in horror then. And it's the one shot of Candy's trying to keep her, sisters from coming through the door, and their bloody little hands are gripping her and pulling on her because they tear an opening in that weird door. And I was just like, dude. And it was really unnerving. It was the middle of the night. And I remember just thinking, I'm acclimated to horror. I have some idea. I've heard of Night of the Living Dead, but I'm like, what are they up to these days? I remember that's kind of what I was saying. I was like, what the fuck is going on with horror movies now? Is that what a horror movie is now? Like a movie that's all about like imperiled 7-year-olds, like being torn apart by other 7-year-olds. So yeah, I didn't forget it. I didn't see the film though till I was like a teenager, and it's great. It was awesome.
Right.
And we'll talk more about the film, but just that left a big impression on me.
That was your childhood haunt. And Rémy, you also were exposed to this movie at an age that was probably not appropriate for what the producers intended.
Well, I was really young. I was probably around the same age. I was like 10, probably around 10. And it was a sleepover which was my sister and I were having a sleepover with like family friends, and we went to Kim's Video on St. Mark's,
Nice.
and we got to pick out a video. And it was like our friend Mike, who was older than us, and we were staying at his house, at him and his wife's house. And he was like, "Oh, dude, you gotta check out the BROOD. It's awesome." And we're like,
The BROOD.
Kids, you know? Yeah, we got like popcorn coolers and shit. And I just, being that young, it's like you identify. I mean, I identified so much with the Candy character,
Yeah.
just like the little blonde girl. And the images of those little creatures and the snowsuits, and it just blew my mind. Like the visuals of that, like just burned into my brain.
Yeah.
And those aesthetics, like we were talking about earlier, those aesthetics like have never left me. Like just the little outfits, the suits, and then the sleepy pajamas,
the sleepy with the hoods, the pointy hood pajamas, 2 different colors.
Yes, 2 different colors.
That must denote something. I always figured they denoted something.
And I love like that the light kind of pastel-y, like it's the baby blue, the baby yellow, and there's something so innocent but so insidious and terrifying. And so it's and the blonde hair. There's just something, that aesthetic always was really, I don't know, just spoke to me. It's like the demonic blonde, demonic pastel terror.
But were you, but were you like terrified by this movie, seeing it at a young age and being exposed to all the trauma?
I remember just being like blown away, like what the fuck. But I also was like, I was into it. I was super into it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when I got older, I watched it again and again, and it's always just been to me like kind of one of those perfect movies.
Yeah, for me, it's not quite as I didn't see it young. I probably saw it well into my teens on DVD, you know, but it was definitely like getting into horror films, DVD, but like getting into horror movies and specifically Cronenberg movies. All I can really remember, I just remember that I'd seen a few of his other films around this time, but none of them had the impact that The Brood did. And I think one of the main reasons for that is that, and I'm sure it's something we're going to talk a lot about tonight, is that you can just feel with this movie that it's so, like, it's his most personal. You know, there's so much anguish, personal rage in this movie coming from him, where a lot of his other movies are just really cool, crazy, wild concepts. But like this movie, like, whoa, especially we'll talk about the ending and we'll talk about how heavy that is. This movie's heavy. Like it's scary because there's crazy set pieces and the little monsters and there's freaky stuff happening. But how heavy this movie is dramatically is what's really cool. But I will say real fast is that watching this movie is, and probably a few of his others, was my introduction to Canada in a lot of ways. Like I didn't really have a sense of Canada much as a probably 14, 15-year-old kid, even though I was growing up in Minnesota. So it's like in this movie, I remember specifically the first time I watched this movie, when Art Hindle's character is talking about his father-in-law, and he's like, "Oh yeah, he lives way out in Halifax," you know. And I'm like, "Where the fuck is Halifax?" You know. And now it just opened it opened my world that there's a whole other fucking alternate universe living above us, you know, in this movie.
He's a gateway drug to Mondo Canada for a lot of people. I agree with you. Yeah, I feel the same way. Actually, it's 2 things for me. It's him and SCTV. Right. It's like the same but wrong. It's like America, but it's like kind of off, and it's just so.
That's what it is.
I love it. It's just I just cannot get enough of that.
There's something
we can talk about that.
Yeah, there's something about like that entry point into Canada with this stuff, dude. I'm sure we'll talk about it, but like, it is this kind of alternate version of America, but there's no reference points, you know, at all. Like it's crazy. And like, you know, they didn't grow up with MTV. They didn't grow up with the same things we did. So it's like alternate culture, but at the same time, they also like a lot of the films are like kind of had this mundane quality, you know, about examining the mundane in Canada. That's just, I don't know. It's a unique flavor that these films have.
Yeah.
I almost feel like this sets itself apart from a lot of those Canadian films, because you know, like those Canadian films like have that like bizarre otherworldly, where you can't place why it feels so strange.
It's a little off
It's
somehow.
off. Yeah. It's off, but an almost bad kind of like. I feel like one of the things that also elevates this, besides like the brilliant composition, how we talked about the score, the Howard Shore score, sort of like you said, Tom, almost like the Hitchcockian moments. Like it's very composed, but then you have the two kind of the British actors who were these kind of giants of you know British television and theater. So it's in a weird way too. It elevates it to something where you're watching something with sort of a gravitas to it, which I
does have that
with the Oliver Reed.
Especially comparatively to his other films. I mean, let's just talk about that for a second. Like full disclosure, I'm not his biggest fan. Love the ideas, but the execution is often kind of, at least me wanting, like I'm not being cheap. Like he sucks. It's not like that's much more complicated, but just like, there's always like Scanners is a perfect example. We talked about it a minute ago. It's like very interesting ideas are floating around, but the execution and the pacing and composition and just
they had to redub the main actor, because it didn't quite work out.
There you go. Yeah. And that movie can get very Canada on your ass compared to the Brood. And that's I'm glad you said that, actually. I mean, like this film somehow elevates in his early career especially, but even as being a Canada film. But anyway, so it's like his first two films, and I really love them, actually.
Yeah,
but they're mainly just venereal disease horror. So like, meaning instantly he expanded so much further with his third feature film, The Brood. And it's very exciting, and the others like really Rabid is sort of just like a cheap extension of Shivers. Which is great. And I really love both of them a lot. It's just his world expands so much more in The Brood that makes me, and he does a nice job with it. Like the ideas are there, and there's more ideas is all I'm really trying to say.
And it's personal.
And it's and that's the thing. And whereas the others were just, you're right, they're more not academic exercises, but a little more cerebral. In overall. But this is very much a gut punch. And even if it's not personal, meaning like I don't know, maybe he was going through a divorce in say 1978. I don't know that.
We're gonna get into that.
It winds up. Sorry.
We're definitely going to get into that. So
okay, great. But all I'm going to say is just like it's personal, even just for the viewer. Because let's say you're the child of divorced parents, it is a punch in the stomach that has nothing to do with body horror or anything.
Right.
It's crazy ideas, like about like transgressive ideas. It's just like a painful film that has nothing necessarily to do with his usual tropes. And he just never really, Scanners is not like that, and Videodrome is a lot of big ideas on like a global scale, and like meta consciousness scales. So it's special for him.
Yeah,
totally.
I mean, Evan, did you want to talk a little bit about why he made this movie in terms of his divorce?
Because I don't know. What's up?
Yeah. This is kind of crazy. I mean, so from there's not a ton out there, about this, and he's talked a little bit about it, and some of the people that were close to him talk about it. So some of it's a little on the rumor and innuendo side of things, but the idea that he was going through a bitter divorce, around the time before making this film, that really, so a lot of the movie is personal in terms of him, because he was caught in a custody battle with, I think, his first child, and was caught up in that. But one of the things that's really, which I only learned recently, I didn't know this up until just a few days ago, but not only was he embroiled in that sort of custody battle, but he also had his ex-wife had ostensibly taken his daughter, I think, to California, and she got involved in some sort of, I don't know,
God, really,
self-help cult-like movement,
human potential thing.
Human potential.
So it really, his life was really paralleling what we're seeing in The Brood. Wow.
But then I think, one last thing is, I think he actually had to go out to California, get the daughter, bring her back all the way to Toronto. So like it's that. So this was all going on in his life, and that obviously propelled everything you see in this movie.
Sure. And that sounds like he was having a not uncommon experience. And maybe we could get into this now. We were talking about earlier sort of the social context, societal context, I mean. It's like boomers be getting divorced around this time. And of course, it reflects in films, Shoot the Moon, Kramer versus Kramer, and and many others, and of course in people's lives. The three of us are children of divorce, for instance.
Yep.
And it's just I mean, it's a not unexpected pattern, especially for women, wanting to get out. The Unmarried Woman is another perfect example.
Yeah.
The year before 1978. But I guess we could talk about the larger social context. Like there's his personal experience and how it informs the Brood, but then there's a larger cultural context. And it's boomers, they're happening, they're youthful in the 60s, they're young, they're college age or whatever. And then they do pair up, maybe start a small family, and then someone's dissatisfied, or they're both dissatisfied, and they want other things, and the clock's ticking. Like, what am I doing? Midlife crisis can often bring a divorce. And I think a lot of it is because they didn't feel as trapped by social convention, even just something like the church. Like you'd have to go through God in the past to get divorced, or not, or maybe you didn't get divorced, like you were Catholic or something.
Right.
So, but then also just like, I think even more importantly, it's like, I want to be in control of my life, and my life can be this big thing, like choose your own parachute. It is a very boomer thing. It's not bad. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just like, hey, wait a minute. Maybe I want to have a series of relationships in my life. Maybe, it's like, I want to have options. I want to feel, again, especially for women, I would think, because that was very new, And so, anyway, it's just, this might be the best reflection of that period, this film with divorce. It's searing,
Yeah.
And Shoot the Moon, I guess, as we talked about.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely talk about that. I'm going to throw it to you, Rémy, here, but I just wanted to get one thing in on that, which is the idea of what you're saying, Tom. But I also think that, and one thing that this movie illustrates super well on a thematic sense with all of that, the way that divorce is becoming more prevalent in society around that time, but also the idea that it's the cycle of trauma and the cycle of abuse, because what's happening here is you're what's so brilliant about this movie is that you're seeing how divorce is being passed down sort of in a way, because you have Samantha Eggers, her parents, are divorced. They're both alcoholics. They sound like fucking nightmare people. They get divorced. And then they, of course, abused her when she was a kid. And then there's a scene, Rémy, if you want to talk about that. But to me, it really also talks about how that's cyclical and it's coming down and being passed down.
To wrap up what you're saying is that what's the last shot of the film? Like the little girl Candy has like plantar warts on her arm or whatever.
Tears.
It's very chilling. Yeah, right. That's true. And it's just, I guess, fuck what I was saying in a way about the relative selfishness of boomers deciding to divorce or not. And we were talking about this a little bit before. If they have a family, and people say like, if you are married and get divorced and you don't have a family, who cares? It's like, you guys broke up. But it's the family and the almost inescapable trauma.
Yeah.
That's actually really, in a way, at the heart of the film.
That's what this, I was going to say that exactly what you said. The film is about divorce, but the greater umbrella theme is trauma and how trauma gets passed down, it's intergenerational, and then how it manifests. And this whole movie is about manifestation of trauma, right? And so divorce is a symptom, like the sores are symptoms, like divorce is, and the trauma is something that was in all of their childhoods that kept on getting carried on. And I mean, this movie, he does it in such a brilliant way because it's a monster movie, but it's about how do you personify trauma, right? And the scene that I was talking about, I wanted to touch upon was when Candace is at her grandmother's house and she's looking through the old black and white family photos.
Creepy.
And it's really chilling. And she looks at a photo and it's her mother as a little girl in a hospital bed, but played by the actress who plays Candy. So they look the same. And then it's the grandmother sitting on the bed, just staring at the camera with this kind of like ghostly stare at the camera. And Candace says, "Oh, that's my favorite photo. I love that photo. Why was mommy always so sick?"
Yeah.
And the grandmother is, well, I don't know. She always had these sort of bruises on her body or these things on her body. We don't know what it is. And as she's telling that story, which is she's rewriting history,
right?
she abused she abused Nola, Candy's mom, but as she's telling that story and rewriting history, then you hear the banging of the broodling from the other room busting through the kitchen, and it's like
which is her daughter's now unrepressed rage manifesting into little disgusting
little creatures,
monster people,
little
monsters,
no suits, but just like for me, like that whole scene played until the grandma is murdered, like that, it's a masterclass because you have the allegory, but you also have the dread, you have that horror, you have the beautiful visuals, the aesthetics are so beautiful, and it's seen from almost like a child's perspective, like the camera's low a lot of the time, and when you see the broodling like busting through, and like you said, Tom, the orange juice gets knocked over, the milk gets knocked over, those things
it's beautiful.
Can I just say this, I'm only interrupting because I'm a horrible impetuous jerk, but just it reminds me of Possession, which also has divorciness in it.
Yes, totally.
That's another divorce horror. But anyway, sorry, get back to your thought. It's just it's like consumer goods trauma is what I call it. And what I'm saying specifically about Possession is she's smashing the her groceries against the wall when she has her first big freak out in the subway tunnel. So it reminded me of that. It's like, because then all of the domestic totems are being destroyed in the kitchen by the unseen at first brood manifestation, That's like his best stuff, and I'm like,
it is.
Hey, David, where's that guy?
It's so
like in your movie. So sorry.
And it's go ahead.
Go ahead. No, Evan, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's also like aesthetically, like this movie. When I don't want to get too off subject, but the idea of like this is so quintessential late 70s color palette, where you have the browns and the yellows and the oranges and all of that stuff kind of coming together. It's really and like and white and maroon and just that white the milk with the orange juice kind of swirling together.
I know.
Really incredible filmmaking. It's awesome stuff. But the one thing I wanted to say just real quick on the tip of this is, and we've kind of said it already, but I don't want to be redundant, but the idea of like, this movie, like the penultimate horror of this film, right? Even though it has some pretty freaky set pieces like that one we're talking about right now, whether it's that or the dwarf, broodlings tearing apart Oliver Reed, or fucking Samantha Edgar's biting into the rage birth sack.
We'll get into all that.
Yeah, we'll get into all this.
We're going to double down on all that.
We're going to do all that, but all that shit, it's in here, but nothing is more terrifying and upsetting than that last shot in the movie where we feel that trauma of what tragic. Candy has. It's so it's tragic horror. And tragic horror, by the way, tragedy or AKA sad horror is a niche subgenre that's very underserviced. And this nails sad horror.
Well, because look at the actress. Candy, like her performance is pretty brilliant. Like she's traumatized from really the second you see her, like when she's hugging him for the first time, when the dad comes to pick her up from the therapist retreat, she just hugs him and there's a close-up on her face and she just goes like, "Daddy," it's like she's shook, and the girl's face the whole time has this shell shock look, and you're watching a little kid who's just being perpetually traumatized, and you're kind of seeing it happen in real time. And then after the murder happens with the grandma, I was going to say there's another scene where the dad goes to the police, goes to pick her up, right? And there's the police psychologist who comes to talk to him. And this really, really struck me. This really struck me in a crazy way, because the cop psychologist says to the dad, like, "Listen, she's not saying anything. She went to sleep. She was in almost like a traumatic PTS fugue sleep.
Yeah, she's almost a little too cool.
She's too cool. Yeah. She obviously saw something. You have to get her to talk because she's going to repress this stuff. And when someone represses that stuff, it manifests, and you don't want that to happen." And then he said, "I've seen 5-year-olds with ulcers that look like they're
like a middle-aged businessman.
Businessman." And when I was a kid, a doctor said the exact same thing to my mom and me, because I had like really bad stomach problems.
Holy shit.
I had like severe like reflux, like really bad stomach problems because I think of a lot of stuff that was going on in my house, and I internalized everything as a kid. I just internalized it. There was a lot of turmoil, and I would be throwing up. I had stomach cramps, and I got that procedure where they put the camera down your throat. And I remember sitting in the office as a little kid and them saying to me and my mom, her stomach looks like the stomach of a 50-year-old trial lawyer, basically. Because
Jesus Christ.
She's so stressed out, but she's not expressing it. And
Right.
until the other day, like it's so weird. It like triggered that memory watching this. And so, yeah, it was just interesting. And
you hadn't thought of it with previous Brood viewings.
No, I don't know why. And it just
maybe you repressed it, I guess.
I repressed it, so.
That, or it's like I think it's
yeah.
like the age we are now is when that shit comes brooding up to the surface. They say? But just to Jesus. if you're getting real, then I'm getting real here, and maybe we just need to have our own little
one fucking hour therapy session.
Yeah. Maybe we need to do that.
Let's talk it out, guys.
Yeah. So for me, obviously, Tom, you mentioned in the show that we all are children of divorce, and I think that is a reason why this movie does resonate. I know, at least for me, in first seeing it, every time I see it, it holds that punch. And I was very young when my parents got divorced. I was like 2.5, when that was happening. But from all accounts that I've heard, from my parents now, my brother, it was a pretty hostile environment, because divorce is ugly and divorce is messy. And I think that this movie definitely captures that really well too, in terms of, divorce is all about anger, and divorce is all about displacement. And, I remember being like a young kid and being like, hurtled around from one household to the next and going around to all these different places. And I think this movie captures that in a lot of ways, with the broodlings taking candy around.
Yeah, I mean, candy's being carted around all over town.
Yeah.
It's true. I don't even have not to interrupt, but just like, I don't have a fixed idea of where she lived. I was getting a little confused. Like, where does she live again? Because later in the film, like, her father says, like, just give me a second. This is where Candy spent a lot of time recently, and I'm like, wait, where are we? Like,
it's the attic. The attic.
What's her? Like, what is her home? That's
anyway. Like the in-between house I think they have while they're being separated. But anyway, so for me, just being super young, like, I knew it was a very tumultuous home life, happening around me. But obviously, you're 2 years old. Like, you don't have memories of this stuff, but it seeps into you. That trauma still seeps into you. And I remember for a very long time, like, I developed serious phobias where it would manifest in other ways, where like I couldn't be around 4th of July fireworks. Like, loud bangs would I'd have to hide in blankets, like in cars.
You're like a dog.
Yeah, I couldn't handle fireworks and thunderstorms. And growing up in Minnesota, a lot of thunderstorms. So the idea of loud.
You probably were there were probably like doors slamming.
Yes, plates thrown.
I'm not even making that up. Doors slamming and of course yelling and stuff. God damn.
I know 100%. I know 100% that's what was going on. So I had that, and I developed these phobias. They manifested, and that just doesn't happen. You're not just born that way. So these things definitely manifested in the circumstances we live. So this movie hits really close. For me. And that's why, it's and I could tell too, because it's all about the kids. It's all about how this is affecting the kids and how I know it affected my brother.
Candy's the center of the film.
It's the center of the film, and that's what he nails.
What's interesting too. Another thing I was thinking about is like the broodlings themselves are these like little minions, right? That like the mom is birthing, that are filled with her rage, and they're going out to enact her vengefulness and her rage. But in a lot of ways, like the children of divorce do become the minions of their parents. Like because so often we were kind of like almost like we were like sicked on each parent. Like it's like we would kind of do the parents' bidding, I hate
when that happens.
And then we would actually
taking sides
and being forced to take a side, or being forced to be the messenger. Tell your father I said this, tell your mother, and then all of a sudden, like, you do develop this sense of rage because like you are all that is being transposed onto you, like, and you're just so sad that like they're so unhappy that like that anger fills up in you, and you kind of do become a broodling, like you're out in the world filled with all this anger that wasn't in you before, you know, like, and it's confusing.
Funny. It sounds like divorce is, generally speaking, again, in the child's perspective, divorce is not like a lack of something. You know, some people look at it as like, oh, you didn't grow up in a mother, father, two-person household, so there's something lacking. It's like an aggressively negative thing that's punching the child in the stomach. Now, we were talking about this earlier. There are some modern thinkers who have felt that over the last 45 or so years, this time we're talking about that started then, maybe the choice, even if it's painful, but if these are two mature adults, to say, hey, I have my problems, you, my spouse, have a problem. Let's take a deep breath and go, it's not about my feelings or yours. It's 100% about the children. And this one modern thinker was saying recently, it just was a coincidence, I caught this, you know, we're watching the Brood, is just, what if people did that? And in all seriousness, and then, because I think people connote, especially boomers, connote just stay married with like a prison that's based on like Catholicism and like rigid social norms and you know, like homogeneous and patriarchy and stuff like that. Maybe that's all true, but this guy was saying the second you make a family, that's number one, and whatever weird shit equally, because this is the hard part, this one wouldn't be easy, but like equally both of you have a detente and go, we both hate each other, but let's just sort this out and make this where the two people in partnership raising children, and then when they're 18, get fucking divorced. And it was a very stimulating thought. And I guess all I'm saying is it's interesting to see there's so much pushback on that. Not just because it's not easy and maybe close to impossible, but it's just like find your bliss, you know, like someone else, you know, like there's someone else out there. It's like, it's all about you, like find yourself, you know, and that's very boomer. And I'm not resentful of saying that shit. It's just complicated. And I think it hasn't been considered enough. And hearing just you two guys tonight and the Brood talking about this is it's really interesting, because I really feel a little bit lucky. Like I said, I was 2 as well, Evan, and my sister got it a bit. She's older than me. And she got it. And she has some weirdness with my mom. And she was always kind of daddy's girl. And she had kind of a weird, fucked up teenagehood. But me, I was just like, I don't know. I live with my mom, and there's this weird guy I see every summer. You know, it was very abstract. So I think I dodged a bullet, because this sounds rough, yo. You know. Well,
also you were lucky that you obviously had like a healthy relationship with your mom.
I did.
Because I think that's also, it's not black and white. Like
right,
you can be in so many situations where divorce or no divorce, you're trapped with an abusive parent.
Yeah,
with a parent who it's not.
Like they both suck.
They both suck. It's not healthy. It's not safe. You know. And I feel like that this movie is also about child abuse in so many ways, because it's Nola has never resolved her issues. She's abusing her child, and then
absolutely,
so it's like and then the divorce in this case is really him saying like, I need to save my daughter. Basically, I need to extricate her from this situation, because if I leave her with Nola for any more time, she's going to keep on hurting her, and she's going to hurt her worse, you know?
Well, and also she's to speak to the, the narrative of the film, and again, the times, she's fallen in with a very boomer thing, an alternate father, an asshole cult leader, shithead, manipulative guy, in the form of Oliver Reed, as the psychoanalyst, mind fucker, which was more than common then. And like maybe that's not a great way to go. Maybe it was better for her to reconcile with the actual father instead of looking for an alternate father. And so it's tough, because it does the male in the film is the hero, the dad, and the woman really gets in the depiction of this film. She's a monster, literally and figuratively. And
little close to the mic there.
That's weird.
Tom, you can back
Mr.
up
Tom?
a little bit.
Yeah, I changed my position.
Okay.
Anyway, what were we talking about? Movies?
Okay.
Can we quickly just point out that when you do cutaways, Evan, like the scene where the dad is taking the Polaroids of Candy's back.
Oh.
and she's in her room, and just the production design on that and the composition on that shot is so beautiful. You have like the Groucho, like Sesame Street characters. You have the yellow carpet and the little girl looking at the flower.
Peak late 70s.
That is just like gorgeous. I mean,
whoever the cinematographer is had a killer eye and really helped, I think, Cronenberg in this film. If we can, let's get into the groove of the film a bit here. If you guys,
we got to talk about the movie.
And what I want to do is like a hard right turn here. Just a little talking about like set pieces. And this was my.
Can we talk about the first one? Can we talk about the first one?
First one,
or do you the first set piece with Oliver Reed, or do you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, let's get into some big scenes and start there.
Okay, let's just start with the first one, just for chronology sort of purposes. The movie, another just great masterstroke here is that Cronenberg opens the film with this great tight 2-shot of just Oliver Reed and this filthy scumbag guy, Michael.
Scumbag?
No, he's not a scumbag.
He's a marshmallow with a beard. He's horrible. He's a nightmare.
No, I love him. I'm just shitting.
Oh,
and he's obviously he's a very troubled man. But it's this amazing sort of like encounter therapy, I guess, between the two of them. It's
also kind of a theatrical setting. Like there's an audience on a stage.
But it starts tight and then it pulls wide, and then you're like kind of revealing like, holy shit, this is actually this is a performance of some kind. This is in front of an audience. What the hell? And I think obviously Cronenberg has carved out that little niche, where he loves public demonstration sequences gone wrong. Scanners.
That was part of that whole movement at the time. Like that was part of that creepy human potential movement where they would have these therapy sessions, and then they would be in a theater.
I think they still do that.
Yeah, they probably still do
with like Nexium or whatever.
Landmark Forum.
It's probably in the book that all these manipulative shitheads read.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that sets it up in a really cool way, because you're right off the bat, you're like, oh, we're in this world,
love it.
You're in
the Shape of Rage.
The Shape of Rage. I really need to get the Primal Scream book.
Let's talk about it.
We got to order this. Well, what's the guy's name? I have it written.
Janoff.
Yes, Janoff. Arthur Janoff. Yeah. But
ooh, nice cover.
Even that cover, I was like, is that?
Wait, what's going on? What am I looking at? We lost Evan and got this horrifying Fantastic Planet cover. That's
so
ill, dude.
That's
some prog rock. Yeah. That's illin'.
So tell us what this is, though. Tell us what the Primal Scream is.
Well, so Primal Therapy was this dude, Arthur Janoff, in the 70s, and it was all about the concept that all neuroses is coming from repressed childhood trauma, and that the only way to cure that is to go back into those repressed memories, relive that trauma, and primal screaming was a big part of that too. Like, becoming the child again, screaming at the mother, and a lot of the role playing, it was like built a lot of Gestalt.
A lot of
therapy.
role playing, yeah.
And then,
John Lennon's Mother.
Yes.
That song is actually a pop culture example of that practice, because John would go to. I was just reading about him, he didn't take Mick Jagger's call. I was reading a biography. John didn't take Mick Jagger's call. He had a Primal Scream therapy session, him and Yoko. Yeah, it was just funny to see that.
They got way into that.
Him and Yoko. No, Mother, listen to Mother. Maybe that's our moment of Zen.
Oh, actually, that's a really good
idea. Is that song Mother? Listen to it if you haven't listened to it ever or in a while.
Yeah.
The dude is straight up screaming. Mother.
I'm getting chills because that song, you can hear the fucking Primal Scream in that song.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then that movement just really quickly, there was
so in vogue.
Really freaky offshoot that then started. So the Primal Scream thing, it wasn't even that insidious or corrupt. It was unorthodox, and now people would not recommend it, and it supposedly is not very helpful at all. But the cult leader thing sort of evolved out of that, because it was so experimental and unorthodox. There was this other movement called the Center for Feeling Therapy. If anyone can look that up in research, it's insane. And it became the biggest.
Love the generic name.
Lawsuit.
I don't know that.
It's so
well. There's also
freaky.
A lot of this really comes from R.D. Lang. Not to get really in this movie some more, but just like I would recommend just a footnote. Further reading. R.D. Lang is the progenitor of kind of all this, and just as I guess a little like a bumper sticker of him is, way early in the earlier 60s, he would just say, go into this room and go insane and cut yourself and shit on the walls and just like scream. And it was just let it all hardcore hang out. And so R.D. Lang, and he was not a cult-like figure. But then it did get, the manipulators started coming in because they always do.
Well,
money and power.
Let me start.
That's what we got with that's what we got with the Oliver Reed character.
That's what I'm trying to say. Let me quarterback as we're getting to that 20-minute mark. Is just the idea of like things like Primal Scream and how obviously Cronenberg's taking what's in the zeitgeist at the time with all of these self-help movements that are being marketed and being
Est was a big one.
Yeah, Est, of course, and making it with The Shape of Rage, which is Oliver Reed's character's book, of course. And obviously he's just to touch on him in this movie, he's obviously brilliant and brings so much to this movie in terms of playing it, that perfect balance of being super sinister but also being very soft spoken, and then you kind of like he's on the good people's side kind of by the end. But he's super well cast moment. So that opening sets the scene.
Well, that's a classic thing. The maker of the monster is killed by the monsters.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think that's the theme that Cronenberg is doing so many times, obviously over and over again.
Yeah.
Like you said in this film, there's something about it that it really delivers in a way where he is not evil. Like you get a sense that he really believes that these therapies work, but then it gets out of control.
He just wants to take it as far as it can go.
Yeah.
Which mad geniuses do that, and then they start losing ethics and like any kind of like perspective. And that's you're right. Is kind of where he wound up going. Like he painted himself into a corner with this situation. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was just say like, because we're out of time, like kind of like bullet points on like film scenes, iconic film moments. You want to just tiptoe through the tulips here in this? So for me, my adult haunt when I first finally saw the film as I guess a teen is the big scene in the school. And it just had that cheap thrill where I was like, oh, wait a minute, they're going there. Like that's what it felt like when I first saw it, because it was like it's a school. It's little kids. It's a whole school, a room full of them, and they're having fun. And it's an open classroom, very progressive, modern one. It's not like restrictive, like you got to eat your meat, then you have your pudding.
It's like a Montessori school,
like the wall. Yeah, right. So it feels like a very nice environment. They seem like nice kids, and they're doing some creative learning, But of course, these two little monster freakouts with toy hammers. Beautifully done, again Hitchcock-like, because you first see them like in the Birds. You see the two little monsters outside the school, silently staring at nothing and playing with swings to the tires, and that's totally Hitchcock, totally the Birds, nicely done. And then, like, of course, anyway, cut to the short. Long story short, it's just like I was like, wow, he really went there, and in front of all the kids, the teacher's being brutally hammered to death. And I couldn't believe it because it's brightly lit, which breaks horror movie rules. It couldn't be a brighter room. Colors, like you've all been talking about. It's an incredibly colorful location, incredibly colorful scene. And then he's adding red blood to the color.
Lots
and
of
all the
blood.
kids are and all the kids are screaming. And there's almost a glee. I gotta say, because David Cronenberg's kind of he's an edgy guy, obviously.
Right.
But I feel like he had sort of a John Waters moment where he was a little gleeful. And having a really because it's one of the big 70s set pieces of like they're going too far, because there are kids present during that murder scene, like children, actors, whatever, and like it really adds this like next level to it, and it's like it's like, oh shit, he went there kind of moment, and it's very iconic. And so
and putting the little
shout out Pat,
and then putting the little drawing, of course, on
I know
face.
there's a sick humor. This kind of Michael O'Donoghue, kind of John Watersy thing. And he just had a little gleeful fun. There's also some kind of insane, there's a great close-up of one of the kids having this insane expression, like, something like that.
The kids were really upset. Like, the actress who played Kate,
is that on the set?
Yes. They were very sad. Like, they were freaking out. They were really,
my God.
Really?
And Yeah, that the actress playing Candace talks about it, that she had to calm them down. And like, it's just a movie, it's just pretend.
Dude.
And they were really having breakdowns. Like
David.
Yeah.
David.
Child endangerment. Trigger warning. Wow. See, there you go.
Brood.
The 70s. So, I mean,
Wait.
I guess I just, well, yeah, we're just running out of time. Just like, so.
Can I
School
throw one
killing.
scene in? Can I throw one scene in?
Killing.
Yeah, it's crazy. School killing. Imagine that scene fucking flying today. No way. Anyway,
Boy.
so with everything going on in the world. Okay, so in old school 1 fucking hour tradition, it's not so much the new school tradition, but our old school tradition, we would sort of talk about a movie we love, but we'd also talk about one scene we don't like. So I'm just going to talk about...
We did drop that. Yeah.
We did drop that.
I love that. I love that. Go
too.
ahead.
Okay. So one scene for me in this movie, it's actually a scene plus a thread. I wish I could get in a time machine, go back and say, maybe you don't need to do that at all, actually. Because it feels like a producer's note, which is the whole thread of the police autopsy, the alien autopsy of the Brood.
My notes say alien autopsy.
Alien autopsy, yeah.
No, I totally. We both had the same reaction. I have like one sentence for that, and then go off on that whole thing. It's that coroner is being way too casual about a human consciousness shattering discovery. Like, well, obviously they don't eat, and there's a sack with nutrition that runs out. And it's like, and now if you'll excuse me, I'm going to shave my head and start walking into the woods because everything I've ever known and believed has been turned upside down. No, he's just like, in the sack, and then like they don't really have teeth quite, it's like,
yeah.
So, I love that. I thought that was nice and weird, but
yeah, it is. But it is. It's one thing that like, where it's campy to the point of where it kind of brings the movie down when it's been going up. It's been ramping up.
Because you know what I thought? I thought when they die, like the physiology of these things, I thought when they die within like a half an hour, they shrivel up.
Yeah.
Because I'd forgotten that there's an autopsy, and I was like, he should have just done that where it's like, and then they're just like
little
green
shriveled
powder.
Yeah.
They're just green powder.
Okay.
Or something. And I was just like, really? You still made them like these meaty, mechanically.
But then
like
he
you have
goes.
to deal with it.
He goes so far with it. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And then he also goes so far with it to the point of like newspaper headlines, like dwarf killers.
I know. No. A photo.
Yeah,
like
a photo.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like
that's weird.
He doubled down on that. It was weird. Give me a second.
Okay.
I've got to shoehorn this in. 2 seconds. Art
then
Hindle
Rémy
plays the dad. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Then
Art
Rémy,
Hindle,
but
2 seconds. Yeah, no, and I'm done. It's just one last little thought. I wanted to bring it up.
Okay.
Art Hindle, lead in the film, the father. He's the first victim in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978. He's great at being a late 70s guy with kind of like I'm a generic like soap opera man face, like adult. And he's great in both films in that context. But I was just thinking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers, released within the year of the Brood.
Great film.
They're both very late 70s. What I mean is, for just conversation starter, they're both similar in this way. There is a concrete but fantastical element that is a manifestation of cultural and social waves that are flowing through. Like there's a lot, like, and they talk about it in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, like, no, your boyfriend wasn't replaced. A lot of people feel that way, like they're alienated from each other and they can't reach out anymore, and they start feeling like, who is this person I'm living with? Kind of psychobabble jargon. But what I'm saying is both films deal with something. I wish more films did that. It was very interesting. Like, again, this concrete but crazy sci-fi idea that fleshes out a more nebulous, abstract idea about problems with inner relationships with yourself and social relationships. I just think that's a really cool way of movies to deal with things. And those are 2 great examples. And, that's a very late 70s idea, and I wish there was more of it. I think it works really well.
So gone, because now it's like, with people now it's like people are influenced by these movies, and they kind of they're not coming from a personal place. It's more of a reflection of the fandom of it now. So we're at
get bogged down in literally the body horror for body horror's sake, so to speak.
Ooh, I hate that. Rémy.
There's another. Am I loud enough, Evan?
Yeah, you're good. Just get a little closer into that, Mike.
Okay. Another really scary moment is when the dad is confronting Nola and trying to keep the broodlings calm by not upsetting her, where the final kind of before the final scene, right? And he's talking to her and he's like, I love you. We can work this out. I understand you. And she's catching on like, you're lying to me. You're lying. And like, it's really, really scary because it's also that thing of like being in a relationship with someone and then being so like terrified by them,
Walking on eggshells.
And then being really like also knowing like this person, like very fearful that this person is going to hurt like his daughter, right? And then she says something at some point like, I would rather kill Candace than ever give her to you.
Incredible.
I mean, that's real, you know, like
that happens.
Real. That happens a lot. Like in a lot of cases where women
Disgusting.
kill their children, it's usually it can be in like before in a custody battle, or like they're afraid that the husband's going to come and then they
men do it too. Yeah.
And they drive off.
It just happened like last week.
It happens a bunch. Yeah, and there was a story in Connecticut my friend was telling about where the dad was trying to get custody and the mom drowned the little 7-year-old in the bathtub and shot herself or whatever. But so like thinking about David Cronenberg, you know, he said like, I want to make this film my answer to Kramer versus Kramer because I want to show how really painful this can get and who knows, you know, like maybe he did go through something like that where he was scared that something that brutal could happen.
Oh, I'm sure. But wasn't his quote something like, you know, this is my answer to Kramer versus Kramer, but more real. Like it's literally in the quote. But
more realistic. He said more.
Yeah, more realistic. You know, which you know, hey man, this movie does, like I was saying, it explores in such a more complex sort of way, like of all the different touch points of what divorce does to a family and kids and people around you and everything. And that's what's so great about it. I can't even think of another movie of his that is this multi-layered, you know.
And how do you protect your
personal,
children?
like you said.
Or personal.
Scary.
Yeah.
I mean, being a parent is a fucking scary undertaking. You know, it's like you have these things, these children you love more than anything. And it's like, how do you protect them? You don't, you know, it's like, this woman is off her freaking rocker, you know, and you're scared.
Or vice versa. Or both of you are, you know.
Totally.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. And the whole thing sounds terrifying, you know, like, and like that weird thing where it's like, isn't that impossible what you just described to me? You know, like, and maybe it is, you know, like meaning like stay together through thick and thin for the children, you know, these weird things that are also human beings like you both are. And they just happen to be younger, and you have to take care of them. And the gestation period for humans is insane because that involves the size of the female vagina and the human vagina and the child's head. Like we have this gestation period that's unlike any other. It lasts forever and ever and ever. It's meaning we have such intense responsibility of a child for so long because it's about head size. So it just feels impossible. You know,
but know what the real? Oh, okay, go ahead.
No, that's it.
I just had a thought. I think the real moral of this movie, the real moral of the story, it's not about to get divorced or not to get divorced or go to. It's deal with your shit before you have children. Deal with your shit before you have kids.
Yeah.
Deal with your trauma
if you can, or do the best you can.
I mean, try to. You know what I
mean? I think anybody would say, like a psychoanalyst, is just like don't, because it's another form of like self-flagellation and pressure, like fix yourself. It's just can you get closer?
Closer.
Yeah.
Can you work? Can you be working on it?
So something with our parents' generation and their parents' generation is that unfortunately, like they weren't given those tools. They really weren't given those tools.
100%.
And I know my parents, they were together, they were dating, they lived together, and they just were like, all right, this is what you do. You get married, okay, then you have kids. It wasn't like, wait, are we emotionally ready? Are we psychically? Have we really approached like dealing with our shit? And no one really from that generation.
There should be a parenting license.
Yeah,
you know, like you should. It'll never happen, but just there should be. It's like psychological tests. You know, all kinds of things. Totally means testing, like, can you afford this? Like,
I totally agree. But I think that's what this movie's about. I think it's about carrying that trauma. And if you don't deal with that trauma, it's gonna haunt you.
And maybe you can't, and then maybe you should think twice.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
It's just there's just another person involved. Forget child for a second. There's just another person, and then think that they're a child and their development is like unrelatable. Maybe yes, you had your childhood, but can you really? You're not there. You have the hindsight and perspective of an adult. But I can't even remember what being a child was like, honestly, because it just sounds like a scary, strange place for your head to be. Meaning like. Nothing's in context, not very well. It's all kind of garbled and out of focus, so things can blow out of proportion. You know what I mean? And that's what another really bad thing. Like, yes, okay, it's like one adult might look at two adults fighting and going, man, they should fucking break up, or like, Jesus Christ, what's her problem or his? And it's just like a child is just like the big things that feed me are screaming and like they're turning into lions.
It doesn't feel safe and like what it feels scary. And then if you're in an environment where you don't feel safe, like that will have repercussions for the rest of your life. Like,
absolutely.
Because and this movie nails that. The most
primal emotion is fear and panic.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And this and this movie nails that. I mean, even with the Candy, like she's being brought around to all these places that should be a safe place for her. The point. School. The school, the grandma's house, all these places, and that's where all the horrible things are happening to
Actually,
her.
the problems are in the safe spaces.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Even worse than the no place is safe, but like.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And so, totally just want to concur on that about, figuring your shit out before you have kids. My parents definitely, I could say the same for mine. Sorry, Mom and Dad. But anyway, I do want to transition this. We're keeping it real on 1 fucking hour here, Mom and Dad.
1 fucking hour.
BROOD. Yeah. But let's spend the last few minutes we have together on this subject with something a little more fun. Okay, we've gone to the darkness. Okay, we'll give you guys a minute for fashion.
Minute.
I do want to talk about the tax shelter system as well because it's kind of fun. So, okay, Rémy, you have a minute on fashion. Go.
I mean, the primary colored snowsuits are iconic. They never go out of style. I have many of them, and it inspired my entire fashion aesthetic. Yeah.
What's amazing?
And the colors, but also the little pointed hat hoodie, jumpsuity, action pajamas, which is what I call it.
In the pastel, like
2 different colors.
Right?
Matching colors.
Aren't all my pajamas pastel colors?
I just want to say that it's amazing that this week we've done the BROOD. Last week we did Personal Best. That is your fashion identity. Are those 2 movies? I just want to. It's kind of amazing that's how it worked out. Yeah.
Great look.
Great look. The fashion of the BROOD is amazing. I'd love to see a BROOD fashion line. The BROOD collection.
I always wanted to do that.
Really?
Yeah, it's really great. All right, we got 5 minutes left.
Great.
Broodly amazing. BROOD. Okay, so this movie, among other early David Cronenberg movies, are part of the Canadian tax shelter system, which I always find to be really fascinating in the context of film history because it explains a lot of the reason why we got so many fucking weird-ass movies from Canada. And so one of the things is that, just so you know, the Canadian tax shelter system was basically at a period of time when Canada was trying to ramp up its productions. They gave an insane incentive where you could get 100% tax write-off for financing movies, okay? So this whole thing sort of started with, at the end of a fiscal year, whatever they're getting into the tax time, you basically have like doctors and lawyers or like super producer people with money to burn basically to try and get this write-off. Okay, who wants to make a movie? And a lot of the times it would be freaky people like David Cronenberg or people with half-baked ideas, unfinished screenplays, just like whatever it is, let's go.
Incredibly unmarketable film ideas.
Yeah.
There's many examples of that.
It's like who's got a movie? We'll do it, And so that's how a lot of these movies would get made. Now, of course, David Cronenberg broke out of that system and he became very successful. But there were a lot of weird ass movies that were not made for civilians, especially civilians outside of Canada. So a lot of these movies actually didn't get distribution. So they were actually they're making for nobody. So they were making too many movies. They actually made so many films that they couldn't be sold. And also it was like crazy because you look at 1979, I think, which was like actually the peak year of the tax shelter era. Just this is a crazy perspective, 77 films were made that year in Canada compared to Hollywood's 99. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah,
you know, yeah. So
and wrong.
Yeah, and average budget of around $3 million. So a lot of these movies getting made, some of them shelved forever because they weren't made for civilians. But you did have a lot of really interesting movies coming out of the tax shelter system. It gave us David Cronenberg, as I said. It gave us My Bloody Valentine, which is awesome. Prom Night, Meatballs, Porkies. It gave us also little hidden gems like Murder by Phone, Tom. I don't know if you're a Murder by Phone guy.
AKA Bills.
Yeah.
Sure, exactly. I love that movie.
And
there's tons, yeah.
Alan Moyle's The Rubber Gun. You had some like really cool, just interesting little gem films that came out of this that would never be made under any other circumstances. And because
they're not born of the marketplace, but they have this government subsidy birth, you know, which is just odd. I mean, yeah, because if it's marketplace driven, there's always a, you know, like a foreground concern, you know.
There's checks and balances. There was no checks and balances.
There's no checks and balances, and what's
very unique.
Yeah, and what's really cool about it is that these movies are extra weird because, they don't have to, you know, the markability is not even a thought in this process. So they're weird at the expense of the taxpayer. And that, my friends, is a very singular, wild moment in film history. Yeah. And that's why you get movies like The Brood.
I have a feeling that's a very Canada thing. Like, I don't know Canada that well, but I feel like that's like only Canada would do that. Like,
well, you know why? You know, well, I mean, I definitely rag on Canada a lot because a lot of the TV shows I produce happen to be out of Canada. But one of the things, you know, about it is I think that Canada does have, I'm going to get heat for this, but a little bit of a, you know, inferiority because, you know, towards America, and that, you know, because they don't want they don't want the people of Canada consuming too much American content. So they invest heavily in Canadian content.
That's right. And no, that's the other thing. There were dictates that the theaters had.
Everything.
If I'm recalling this correctly.
No,
there were dictates. So it's like you have to have 40% U.S. film, 60% Canadian film. So it doesn't matter if no one shows up to the Canadian films and everyone shows up to the U.S. ones.
Yeah.
It's social engineering.
Yeah, it is. So what's interesting is if you go to Canada right now and turn on the radio, you're driving around, you turn on the radio, you know, like the rock station, you know, you'll hear like maybe one song, you know, then another song, you know, then you'll hear some like total, you know, doofus band that you've never heard of.
April Wine?
Yeah, well, no, that would be cool. But like you're hearing like, you know, the weirdest, like, who are these doofuses and why are they on the radio?
I know what you mean.
You know,
like, naked ladies?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly. Well, they all.
But I know what you mean.
Yeah. Anyway,
I know what you're saying.
I think as like a baby shower gift. No, maybe not a baby, maybe a wedding shower gift. Give people the Brood to learn, educate yourself. Yeah. And
okay.
Recommended therapy tool.
Yes, recommended therapy tool.
We did it. That was easily the proportions of non-specific film talk was bigger than I think any other time. But it was great. It was very rewarding and it was worth it.
And that's what the movie commands. I mean, the movie commands us to examine our childhoods and our traumas.
Yeah. You can't ignore it.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah.
There's nothing else to talk about.
Yeah, what the hell are we going to talk about? Like, you know, we had used a lot of blood there on the floor, and you know.
Yeah, exactly. That's the heart of the film. But we were also, I'm glad. I mean, I guess we're doing a Monday morning quarterback here, but just like the thing I'm also happy about is lauding him with a real achievement and getting a little granular about it. And I'm glad that all of us individually and together were highlighting certain moments of some really stellar filmmaking. That's all I'm going to say.
100%. And I also hope that to Monday morning quarterback what we just did, I also hope that people don't walk away thinking that we're like haters, like Cronenberg haters. You know,
No.
Yeah, because I like Shivers and Rabbit. I'm totally with you. I love it. Videodrome, like fucking Videodrome's a good time. The Fly's a good time. You know, The Fly is a sad horror. That's some sad horror too.
But then there's Crash.
I know.
And like Naked Lunch sucks. Like, you know.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I like Dead Ringers though.
Dead Ringers is some cool shit. That harkens back to the first three kind of. It's complicated. It's just, and I'm almost just curious because like I jokingly said earlier, Monday Morning Quarterback was like, hey, the guy with the milk and the juice spilling,
Orange
can
juice.
you get him on your new film? David, like, where's that guy? You know, because it's too good. It's it's as good as like anything.
Yeah.
Also, Tom, kudos to you on the sort of the birds, like pick you up on the birds reference.
Yeah.
When the when the schoolyard shot, because like that is very reminiscent of that scene.
It's very
This
birds.
movie,
And
I mean,
and the playground, you see the birds on the gym set or whatever.
Absolutely. And he doesn't make it easy. You're not, something feels a little off in their behavior, and you're not sure that they're two horrible humanoid monsters.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it's
all right. We're on borrowed time here.
Sorry.
We're on borrowed time.
We're doubling down.
We're doubling down. Double dipping. But hey, man, that was great. I'm really glad we got to do
That was very cool. I'm glad
this
we did
movie.
That was
Me
fun.
too.
It's
Yeah.
really cool.
So Rémy, thank you so much for taking over for these past
great
2
to have you.
weeks. Great to have you.
And
Also,
in the custody battle of 1 fucking hour, Marcus is coming back. Marcus is coming back to stay with us.
yeah,
And Rémy has to go back
Yeah.
to her
yeah.
to her father.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So Marcus will be back next week. We're gonna have a big sort of coming home party for Marcus. On that note, though, normally we have the sort of we basically know what next week's movie is going to be. That's going to be TBA for right now because we don't know. We got to confer with Marcus. As he comes back from his Ireland, isn't he going to like Portugal too? Like his Portugal, Ireland?
I think Portugal and Ireland misadventures. Yeah, he hasn't gotten back to me at all. He's like lost his sauce over there.
Yeah,
which is great. Good for him.
Yeah, he's going to come back like freshly ayahuasca'd. He's going to come back with new light.
Like speaking Portuguese.
Cornrows. Yeah, like he'll.
Hey, pessoal.
Yeah, but so we want to do something goofy and fun. So we're gonna figure out what that's gonna be. And then
with him.
With him, yes, with him on this show. So we will let you know what that one fucking hour is gonna be. Stay tuned on the Instagrams and the Twitters. But this was a hell of a show. We went to some real places. I'm glad you guys joined us for that, and I guess can't leave you guys hanging without your moment of Zen. So we will get to that right now. Rémy's favorite thing in the world, right? Isn't that right? You absolutely love the moment of Zen. All right.
Insist.
Yeah,
Evan and I don't even like it, but
we don't
she's
like
just
it.
Like, where's Moment?
Where's Moment? All right, everybody. So we will see you next week. Have a good rest of your weekend, week, whatever it is, and we will see you soon. All right, bye, everybody.
Ciao.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.